Hi, I'm Victor Vogel. Welcome to the YouTube Live event that I have scheduled for today. We're going to be discussing the paradigm shift and sort of a new concept I'm trying to evolve to uh, help um, stimulate discussion about the leadership paradigm shift that I discuss in my book, Renaissance Leadership Odyssey. Now, the purpose of this particular podcast is to kind of just introduce to you the process that I want to use to do this. Uh, and then from there, we'll be dividing it into some segments uh, that is really just almost a strategy for change, if you will. I've used it in the past. It's been pretty effective in the past. So, what I want to do at this point in time is really just discuss um, the actual process here. So, uh, again, the purpose here of this podcast, and we're going to be creating a blog also, is to encourage people to participate in a dialogue or discussion. Well, probably a dialogue because we're going to be learning as we go um, about the current leadership paradigm and why, given what we're doing in the world and where we are with the world and the workforce and business and just in general leadership, why it's important to change that paradigm because it's going to require some different kinds of things than we have been actually uh, doing over the last 4 or 5 decades. Primarily because technology is moving things so fast that we need to kind of keep up with that process. So let me explain the podcast. What we're going to cover uh, what would be uh, if I were working inside an organization, the steps that you would walk through to begin the change process, sort of a culture change process that would help leaders to become a little more effective in the future. And really, what that amounts to is the ability for leaders to connect with employees in a way that employees are motivated and excited about the change. So, the podcast itself is really just focused on covering the various steps of this change process, sort of breaking it down in the smaller parts and discussing each of those smaller parts in sequence so we can kind of get an understanding of what we're talking about and what I have kind of defined as a Renaissance leadership change. And we'll talk all about that during the process. But the podcast is really actually a way of beginning to communicate to a larger population about leadership and about the role that leadership can play, the effective role it can play in helping us adapt and change society as we're moving forward here. So this is a big part of what we are needing to do in order to sort of adapt and adjust to things that could be upon us. For example, right now we have AI coming upon us, and there's really no real structured leadership approach to how that will work relative to not just the people who designed it and own it and now all of the major high-tech firms fighting over it. But how's that going to impact everybody else? The people out there who are going to be impacted by this particular program called AI. And there are going to be other things in the future that we don't see right now, but they're going to come on us, what we are pretty certain of, because of the technology. Things are going to move faster, and they're going to be more impactful across the board. In other words, not just at the high level of the organization level, so to speak, the top of the organization. If you think of the whole world as an organization, only the top of them will be involved in this process. It is one now where more people on an ongoing basis now understand the need, based on what's going on in the United States here, about the importance of everyone being involved. And so you can expect this to permeate the workforce also. That's going to change the workforce. And that's something that we need to consider in leadership. So the podcast is a way of presenting some of this information in a structured, sequential way in small enough sections for us to discuss it over several different podcasts here. And I wanted to do them on YouTube Live because I can just, we can hop on here and people can get into the chat. And in fact, I need to make sure that's up and running here. So just give me 1 second. I want to, let's see here. Okay, so I can see what's happening. I have certain things here I haven't put together yet in this process, and one of them is I have voice control, so I need to stop that so that it doesn't keep recording everything I say down into the chat. This is just a little welcome message to make sure the chat's working okay. And okay, there we go. I'm up. And so this is what will happen. I will be the sort of your consultant guide, so that your consultant to help you kind of work through the dynamics of looking at the change process and getting you engaged in discussing it. This is not too far from what I used to do as a consultant. When I would go into an organization to help develop leadership, whether if it was for a department or the whole organization. But let's take a department, for example, to keep it simple. Then suppose this leader is struggling, and whatever the dynamics were, it's normally something like, they're not hitting their goals, or they're having high turnover in the department or something like that, that I get called in to come help. My first approach to that is to come in, and I understand from my experience, my education, my life's work in this area, what tends to work effectively in connecting leaders to their people so that they work together in a harmonious, collaborative way to achieve all that they need to achieve, and that everybody feels happy and satisfied with that process. That's the first approach is normally to take a look and assess the status quo. And so once I do assess the status quo, I then need to cover that, not just with the leader, but with the whole department overall. So it's not like the leader has information that the rest of the department doesn't have, because that's one of the problems leaders experience in their sort of command and control approach to things. So I come in and I normally sit down and we first talk about collecting this data, because it involves talking to the workforce usually, and we want to make sure that's done in a way that's anonymous and that only the aggregate data gets shared, all of those traditional ways. And then we collect the information, we share that with the leader, but we also share it with everyone who's involved with the leader, what I call the stakeholders of the leader, and that would be the employees, obviously, but there's the boss, and then there's peers, people, other leaders who work in conjunction with this leader in some way, shape, form, or the other, are impacted by how well this leader does. So we talk about that. And we share all that information, and then we together as a group began to draw strategies about what can help, what needs to be done with this leader to help change that leader. Now, normally I work primarily with the leader when I do this, but it is with the insight and information from the employees, and in some cases, actual participation of the employees in designing the strategy for change for this leader. Most of the time when I'm go into an organization, employees are telling me they either hate the leader or they like the leader, but they don't quite know how to make. They don't have the ability to figure out how to make that change happen in that person. So it's very important to realize that we're going to be talking from a holistic perspective. So that was an example. We'll probably talk about let's take a look at where the status quo is in leadership today. Okay, so we'll cover that. That will be one podcast, and you'll get a chance on the podcast through the chat to ask questions. Okay. And if you have a question, I can stop and look at the question, take a look at it, and we can talk about it and sort of discuss it. And I can see from the chat whether you're responding or not responding to that. So those are some of this is the reason to sort of use the podcast to lay out the particular area we're going to be talking about in leadership change, where what's involved with it, how we're collecting it, and what we're doing in that particular phase, and give everybody a chance to input for that and take a look at that. Now, the other aspect of this taking my notes here, the other aspect is that we're going to post this podcast to a blog, and I've created that blog. It'll be on my website, but it'll be a Google blogger blog. And what I'm going to do is take the video and any comments and everything that come with this, but we'll take what we have from the podcast. We're going to transfer it over to the blog. That's going to constitute that blog. So somebody can come onto the blog, and what they will see is what we discussed in the podcast. And then as they look and see what's discussed in the podcast, there's an opportunity for them to actually comment on that. Now, the comments, I monitor before they go out to make sure they're relevant, and we're not trying to put a political bent on something during this political age. We're talking about leadership, although that could be relevant to the government today. But generally speaking, we're trying to keep this focused on a particular area, and we don't want to get a lot of stuff in there. So I monitor what goes into the comments, but unless it's something that isn't relevant or is super derogatory or something, then the comment's going to be in there. So everybody can come in then and look at that blog, and they can They can see what we discussed, and they can see what other people have commented, and they have an opportunity to reply to those comments. Pretty much the standard format for a comment thread. You could get a dialogue or a thread going about, I see that's happening. I'd like to know more about this, or I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Can you clarify it? Or I hear what you're saying, but I have a different perspective on it. So here's my perspective. I don't want to get into the criticizing issue, but don't mind at all the critique side of it, which is if you have a different point of view and you're backing that point of view up with some relevant evidence based information, then having a different point of view sometimes is extremely helpful and useful. And that's one reason why when I consult, I don't just consult with the leader and that leader's boss. I get the employees involved. I get the peer group involved. I get everyone who has a stakeholder interest in that leader being successful. I am engaged with them in this change process as much as I am with the leader. So this is a holistic approach, and it's the same way I want to approach the leadership paradigm shift. I don't want this podcast to be isolated to leaders. I do isolate it to subscribers because I want to make sure that these are people who are viewing this podcast that have an opportunity to uh, uh, remain focused on what we're talking about. And when you open it up to the broader audience, it normally takes you into some areas that waste a lot of your time. What I call noise. That people are talking about politics, they're talking about all kinds of things other than the specific focus that we're trying to get to during the podcast. So I won't open it up to the public, but I will open it up to anybody who wants to subscribe to this channel, and we'll focus on whatever topic area we're talking about in the leadership realm. So, subscribers only is not a paywall per se. It's just a block on having a lot of noise into the discussion when we could get more accomplished if we have fewer people. For example, instead of having thousands of people and the scroll chat thing going so fast you can't look at it, it's better to have a few people who are subscribers to the channel who have an actual interest in leadership and leadership change and development involved in our discussions and dialogues. So that's one of the realms for having subscribers only in that process. But over on the blog side of it, we're going to be posting this video on the blog along with any comments that come with it. If any comments come with it, but we'll post those there. So we will have comments here on my YouTube channel, Building Renaissance Leader. There is YouTube keeps messing around with. They haven't quite got like Facebook and others yet. A way for you to comment in a community. So there is going to be a community over there on about this link to this podcast that allows you to have comments and then reply and get a thread going, so to speak, kind of like a Twitter or Blue Sky text kind of information gathering process where you can have an opportunity to input your thoughts or your feelings, and then start a comments and reply process that could create an ongoing thread, which is what I hope happens. Is we get some comments, we get some replies, so you get some replies to the replies, and you get a discussion thread going, talking about this process to get a lot of information into the public realm for everybody to view and see this dialogue as it's taking place. That's the best way I can say right now until I can figure out a deeper way to get people to sort of interrelate. Now, I'm hoping what can happen, and we'll have to see how the block and YouTube allows, but uh, it could be that, for example, two people might start a conversation either in the comments section or in the blog's comment section and get going. And instead of doing that by texting, you text and you say what you want, then I reply with the text, and it starts a long chain. It's kind of difficult to follow from a communication perspective. I would hope what might happen is some of those people might get together on a video conference like Google Meets or something like that, or Zoom, or however you do it, and have that discussion in a video format. Come back and repost that as a blog on my blog, but under your authorship. In other words, the author will be you or that group of people, if however you and other authors, so to speak. And that can be posted on the blog that I have going. And that would be a great way for people to see the discussions that are had on these video conferencing sessions. And you can sit and listen and watch some of those and glean some information that might be helpful. If you happen to be a small business leader that can't afford to hire guys like me as consultants to come in there and work with you, you're actually getting this dialogue happening the same way somebody can watch this video. And if I had 5 other people in here and we were discussing, I don't know, how where things stood today in leadership, and I might have a boss or a CEO involved in that discussion. I might have a small business owner in that discussion. I might have 3 or 4 employees out there who are dealing with leaders in that discussion, or I might have leaders from different functional areas like marketing or HR or operations or legal or whatever it might be. They all are part of an organization. So you get that kind of diversity in your discussions and dialogues, and you have that in a video conferencing format, and you keep it somewhere to an hour or less. It's fairly easy to convert those and just load them onto YouTube. It could be your YouTube channel, or you might even get with me and we could put it on this channel, and then we put that over into a blog, and other people can then write. They could have their video conference response to that, or they might choose to decide to create an article to read, and then author that article under their name. They would be listed as the author of that article in the post, in the blog. So, but it's a central place for you to be able to do that. And we're focusing strictly on changing leadership to be more effective in the future. That's the sole purpose of this podcast and that blog and my book, and where we're going is to be more effective as leaders. That's the sole purpose of that whole thing. So this is all about really using the podcast for me to initiate discussion and dialogue. And down the road, if we decide we might want to alter this to where we do it in, say, a group dynamic, and people can then add chats into the group dynamic. I have the option to do that. we can do that through a software product called Ecamm, where I can bring 4 or 5 or 6 people together, and we can start having discussion. Stop the discussion, go take a look at the chats, answer some of the questions, and go that route and that podcast. Now, what makes it good for the blog is people aren't always there at that time that a podcast happens. So you can go back to the blog and watch that blog and watch the podcast on that blog. You can respond to it through a comment approach. You can respond to it by writing an article on your perspective about what we talked about, and or you could do a video like I'm doing right now and post that as a blog, and it'd be under your author title name. Or you might have a group chat with other people in a video conference and do that. So there's a lot of ways for you to input data. The idea is to keep the information and the different various opinions that are coming in out there, make those available to people. Not we're not going to, we'll probably, from that, everybody could kind of make a decision how they think we ought to take this down the road. Now, I'm going to probably guide it down towards the concept that I'm professing, which is the internal development, because I spent 8 years trying to figure out what we've been doing wrong. And I think I found some answers to that, and I have a particular approach to it. And that we're going to cover that approach in each of these podcasts. But you can do your own, and you could post it on this blog. But it's a central place that is really focusing on changing the leadership paradigm from what we're doing today, what the role is today, what it needs to be in the future, in order to meet the very changing demands. In other words, there's this real sense now, for example, I just read in Harvard that the masses are, there's so many people starting their own little businesses and being successful through the internet, through the social media channels like YouTube and whatever. And they're creating, anybody at any point in time could create a business and do it over the social media or remotely with people. And that business is generating. And so that's what YouTube has done. And that's what's created the whole TikTok video thing. Everything is like, I got this, I got that. And actually what I'm sensing personally myself is that's giving a lot of people some different opportunities. And we had this kind of phenomena back in the 1990s. It was called the .com, when the internet first came out and social media first came out. Everybody was seeing the benefit of it. And we had a whole bunch of people going in, and the whole idea was, wow, there's a lot of people. That means this power base that is out there, where power is generated, it's going to be mostly with the masses and less with like a leader at the top of an organization. We're going to flatten the organizations and all that. It never evolved. People did get rich off .coms, but then a lot of them failed. And then it got to the point where just a few people were buying out the ones that were potential successes and consolidating them into their companies. That's how Facebook did it. It's how Apple did it. It's how Microsoft did. All these major firms, it's 3, 4, 5 that now control the vast majority. And that's what's going on with AI. AI came in, and it wasn't designed by one of these major corporations per se. The pop came independent from it, but now there's this real push to buy all of the stuff up that everybody does and consolidate it into Google or Apple or Microsoft or Facebook, or the 3, 4, 5 that still control the organization. So we had that the idea that we're going to have mass leadership and leaderless organizations. That all happened in the 1990s under the .com era. And it didn't really transpire, because that's not how we as people, as humans, tend to want it to be. We tend to want to have people who don't want to lead, but we do want leaders to help us, that people who we think might have something we don't have that can help us move along. But we want to also be valued and sensed as valuable into what's happening, but we just don't want to be the leader. And that's like 80-90% of America, or anywhere in the world for that matter. So there's always this need for leaders and some sort of hierarchical structure. It's been with us forever. The question is not so much whether that is what we're going to have. I think we're going to still have that. The question becomes, how is that going to interface with the rest of the world? Because what we know now is the last 4 or 5 decades, it hasn't been what the workforce is really considered beneficial to them and what they want. And which has led to these conflicts of boss versus employees, remote versus on-site. All these are all hierarchically structured, power-based arguments that people get into when we don't clearly define roles, or we don't have something that meets the needs of everyone, not just a few, those people at the top. Because you begin to decide who's valuable and who's not valuable. And when you're not valued, you're not happy. So therein lies the dilemma that I found. Now, what I've discovered are there's some things we've missed in the leadership development process that would reconnect. I don't know if reconnect is right. I don't think we've ever been connected effectively. But at one time, there was a lot of unification. Employees felt proud to work for a company, and they were bragging about working for this organization. There was that feeling out there in the 1950s, late 50s, early 60s. And this kind of fell apart as we began to seek our own independence and power. You could see the power beginning to narrow as acquisitions and divestitures were happening. The power was narrowing. If somebody had a significant amount of resources and had earned those resources, or born into them, however, they might see somebody out there on the horizon that is sort of a competitor, and so they might just buy them up and put them under the fold and make the deal very sweet. So almost undeniable deal. And that kind of stuff led to us narrowing it down to just a few people in charge. And that's how this wealth distribution evolved. I saw you could watch this happen over the course of the mid 1960s on to now. I've been watching this happen this whole time. That's how long I've been in leadership. So the essence here is we need to get dialogues going, because you're going to find that, like this article is pretty much expressing that we may have a power shift. We may have power shifting from those few who control it down to the people in masses. And that just, it just doesn't click with historically throughout time, since the beginning of time. That's not been how it happens. There's been several moves to make that happen. They've all sort of melted away and turned back into hierarchical structure, simply because that's how the human race tends to perceive they want things to be. There are those who don't feel comfortable leading or don't like to lead, and then there are those who have the predilection to lead, the desire to lead. So then it becomes, how much uh, the masses are involved in that leadership selection. Um, and what is that role? It always comes down to is what is that role of that leadership? What do we want that to look like? And the masses don't want a situation where they're in charge of everything because that leads to chaos in the end. It always does. Uh, and it always brings it back down. There needs to be some sort of leadership structure, but the question becomes, how can we have a leadership structure that we're sure will be concerned about the benefit and welfare of everybody, which was what the founders of democracy had in mind, and why it's such a great experiment. It isn't something we need to change, it's something we need to enhance. In other words, as we grow in it, we also need to grow from what we understand leadership to mean to us. And so that's the purpose of all of this dialogue. And because right now we're using the same paradigm that we used in 1960 to lead people. We call them different names. We change the names and title. We haven't changed the approach. We haven't changed the role of leadership. It's still functionally focused. It's still, which means you're siloed. And as much as you say you're trying not to be siloed, you just attend a budget meeting in a company and you'll see departments fighting for the money. You won't see hardly any times do you see a department who goes, well, look, here's where we are today. Last year we were in a different place, but here's where we are today. And today I don't think I need that amount of money for my department to function well. We could take that money and put it over here in marketing, for example, and they could really use it to enhance the overall corporation. And I am contributing to that by giving you some of my budget to make that happen. So I'd like you to kind of keep me involved in that process. Okay. Yeah, sure. We all agree. We go down the path. That doesn't happen today. It's a big fight. Normally, it's a big fight for your chunk of the pie. And your value as a leader is depending upon how much money you can get and resources you can get. And whether your people are happy depends upon that also. But the reality is, we don't want that focus that way. We want to change this so that we can connect the employees and the leadership in a role that is designed to help organizations in their roles uh, be more successful, and from that everybody benefits from that, from the perspective of what they contribute into that. So yes, there are some people who will make more than others, but they are also contributing more. But they are concerned that those people that they rely on to do the work are as equally as important as they are in that organization. So that's the change we're trying to evolve here. And the change that, frankly, that I put forth in the Reader's Renaissance Leadership Odyssey book I wrote. And there are some things we need to change about how we think about leadership, the role leadership plays, and consequently how we're going to identify leaders, develop leaders, select leaders, and place leaders in position. And a lot of it is going to challenge an industry that has been built. Right now, there's research out there that shows we spend anywhere, it's probably greater now, but the last time I looked at it was about $116 billion a year on just leadership development in the United States. That's an industry. So what we're proposing is to bring that selection and identification and training and development process back in-house and be more focused on it being in-house. And that's going to challenge an industry. And that industry is going to push back on companies. So that it's not an easy task to do, But what's happened in industries and consulting firms, for example, they've been doing the same thing the same way for 4 or 5 decades because it generates, we built an industry around it and generates revenue for that industry. So they're not really excited about changing it, because if they change it, that means they have to do something different, which costs them more. Right now, they're making a lot of money off of just sustaining the status quo. And that status quo isn't satisfying the relationship that needs to happen between the employee and the leader. And that's evident in a lot of research that's done by groups like Gallup and Pew and Harvard and other universities. So that's it. What we're going to do is we're going to start a podcast here. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm not a podcaster. I'm just doing this because this is a medium that everybody seems to want to use. But I'm going to tell you now, this is not an issue. Leadership role change is not an issue that it is a 15-second issue, is a 1 hour or 2 hour coaching session. It's not going to happen that way. It's not going to ever change. Now, you can market this stuff on social media and make millions of dollars, lots of money, but you're not going to change the society or the structure of what we're doing that way. You have to get your hands dirty and get in and do the work to make the change. You can come up with every time I turn around and look at every YouTube, all of a sudden doctors have become experts in nutrition. They've stopped being doctors and they're going because they make more money where they can help people. You know, they're helping people rather than helping people improve and doing what doctors always did, and that's diagnose you, follow you, track you, work with you individually all along. You have doctors going into the marketing business on media, just pushing pills, pushing this diet, pushing that program. I've got the magical mirror. I mean, there are and now I'm wondering, have we diluted a profession that we put a lot of trust in? How do you trust a doctor that became a used car salesman for nutrition? I don't know. I trust my doctor because he hasn't done that yet. I hope he doesn't see this. He hasn't done that yet. I trust him because every time I go to him, we look at the same data. We've developed a 25-year relationship, and we look at my health on a yearly basis, and we adjust it and adapt whatever we need to do to make it easy for me to stay healthy at 79 years old this month. So all I'm saying is, this is not a quick fix. It's not something that can be done with a meme. It's not something that can be done with a one-off or two-off or a particular program. I mean, most leaders cannot implement the programs they're taught when they go to a leadership course. Most of them don't get implemented. Well under 20%, well under 80% don't have an impact on their employees and the organization, according to research. Only about 20% of the people say they learned something, they actually can make a change in the behavior of employees, and that actually affects the organization. It's actually down into the teens. It's not even 20% of the people who get that done. So think about this. We spend $116 billion annually on these programs. 18% of the people get some sort of impact from them. And yet every business leader in an organization, the chief operator or the chief human resource officer or the chief executive officer, they go, we really need to invest in leadership. We need to invest in leadership development. We really do. but only 18% of the people seem to be able to transfer it into any benefit to the organization. It's a false sense of security. It's a false sense of security, and it's led us to where we are now. I mean, my God, we have put some really bad people into offices that head this country. We have put some. There are leaders who built significant organizations that are just cowardly bowing down to the force of intimidation from a leader. I mean, when you look at Jeff Bezos, Apple, CBS, ABC, all of these powerhouses are paying millions and millions of dollars to Donald Trump so that he doesn't, come back and talk about a coercive power leadership role. That's it. Hey, you don't pay me, I'm going to stop your acquisition from going through. I'm going to put my FCC in the middle of all the stuff you're doing. I'm going to get in the middle of the business you're doing with China and the rest of the world. You don't. So here's the deal. So how does that stop? You pay them hundreds of millions of dollars and you consider it an investment. That's what your leaders of these really big, great organizations have come down to. And then they falter. Look at Musk. Look at the richest man in the world. Rocket ships, electric cars, had it all going. Bought Twitter, imploded Twitter, just drove it into the ground. Got into politics, got destroyed. His image was totally destroyed. It impacted all his other businesses. This is the leadership this is the paradigm we put in place. And we've had it in place for 40 years. I think it's time to change. I think it's time to change how we want leaders to be in this world. And I think I've kind of laid out in my book, The Renaissance Leadership Odyssey, what we did wrong, what we missed. It's really clear to me because I've actually been involved in it for 50 years and I've watched it happen. I got out of it. I've been what you might want to say helicoptering above it, not being involved in it, but watching it happen. That's a great position to be in because you're not threatened by anything. You're just looking at it happening so you can go down here and actually say this is happening and not have to worry about offending anybody. I'm not an executive, but I also am not under the control of anybody. So I can tell you that we have screwed up in how we've developed leaders. And there is one thing in particular we've missed, and we're going to cover that in one of these podcasts. So you'll get a chance to see that. So that's what we're doing in this podcast. We're starting it out. If there was anybody on here, I didn't expect anybody to be on here, but I had to launch this thing. So I'm doing this live on YouTube now. I don't know if it doesn't look like anybody's even watching. So I guess they'll see it afterwards, which is an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is you get to see it. The disadvantage is it would have been better if we could have seen it with me and we could have talked about it together. That's called asynchronous communication. It's delayed communication. You don't know who's seeing what. You don't know if you're having any impact whatsoever other than there's nobody watching. But I don't know how many people will watch it later. And it's not the preferred way. The preferred way is to be involved in the beginning. All right. So we're going to have the podcast. You get a chance to ask some questions, and we're going to do it by topic, and I'm going to guide the topic areas and only subscribers to my channel. So if you want to get involved in this, you need to subscribe and you need to come on in and get involved. Jump on in, ask the questions. I'll take a few moments and stop as I see questions pop up. And it's not like I'm trying to get in this podcast, I'm not trying to get a bunch of information over to you. I'm talking about it. I'm starting the discussion with the topic area, and I'm expecting other people to jump in here and ask questions, and we take it and go from there. This is not one of those things where I'm trying to tell you, here's what you need to do. I'm only guiding, I'm only offering you some thought process for you to consider. You don't have to do anything, but you're not going to get in on any of the discussion if you don't subscribe. And subscription holds the number of people down to a manageable. It's not a numbers game. Leadership change, organizational change, human change is not a numbers game, folks. It's not how many people you like. It's not how many people watch your stream. It is how many people who are interested that you can connect with, that you can actually help change. And that is called empathy. You have compassion for people, and you have empathy, and you want to help them understand. You want to understand where they are, what they're struggling with, so you can help them overcome those struggles. That requires not just looking at leaders, but looking at employees. So I don't expect anybody who subscribes just to be leaders. I'm hoping employees subscribe to this channel. I'm hoping leaders subscribe. I'm hoping CEOs subscribe. I'm hoping coaches and mentors and consultants subscribe, because that's the breadth of the people we need involved in talking about this change. But we do need to make the change. We've been through this, but I don't want my grandkids to go through the mess we're going through right now. And that's not just the government, it's business, it's how we approach everything from a leadership perspective. There is a way, and democracy is a great tool to guide the role of leadership, but it requires you to think about something other than money as your measurement of success. The sense of community, the sense of welfare, the sense of concern and togetherness and unity. All of those things, great underpinning that our forefathers thought about, is great underpinning. It's lasted going on 250 years if we make it through this year. So in the next year, we might finally get there, but we got a lot of work to do, a lot of work to do. And so hopefully this will help you. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Check out my webpage for my blogs. It'll say blogs on there, and you can go straight into the blog. I've set it up so when you go to the webpage, you can click on it and it goes to the blog, and it puts it on a whole new title or tab for you there, so you see it in bigger terms. Come on in and get involved in that blog. Subscribe to that blog and invite yourself to tell me you want to be an author of some articles to put in there, and I'll set you up, and the only thing I'll do is kind of peruse the article a little bit to make sure there's nothing hostile or that fits the channel and the blog's kind of policy structure of not being harmful, being helpful. Make all of your contributions focused on helping people and helping solve the issue of connecting leadership with employees effectively. Be focused, be purposeful about that. Don't try to, you can put your website in there, you can put your book in there, you can put anything in there, link it all. It'd be great. I'm not trying to block anybody from doing that. I just want you to stay focused on the single purpose of what we're trying to do, and that's actually make a change that'll make a difference for everybody. Okay. Hopefully this one went through. I think I have everything. Like I told you, I am not a podcaster. Don't expect perfectionism and all of the things that people are selling you on YouTube about being a great podcaster. I am a consultant, and I was a very good consultant. And what I am saying to folks now today, I think is going to be very beneficial. I mean, the fact that I just read a Harvard business article, sort of explaining what I was saying is needs to happen when I wrote the book a year ago. Okay. So that tells me I'm on the right track. There are a lot of things telling me I'm on the right track that I'm seeing. Uh, Getting it out to people is, and not spending a fortune because I'm retired. I don't have a large income coming in here from retirement, and it's getting cut down every day by this government we got going on right now. Uh, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a way that allows us to get some information, some dialogue, some discussion going, so we can actually make the change and not just talk about it, not show memes about it, not show advertisements about it. And there's nothing you're going to get in here that says, "Oh, I've got the answer. Here's the real answer." But hit on the button down here in the corner, and I'll tell you more. Now, we're going to tell you more right now as we go along. You're going to be part of the more. You're going to be part of creating the more. This isn't going to be one where you have to click a button and go see if you get all the way up to the point you go, "Yeah, what do you got?" And they go, "Oh, yeah, but it's not free, really. It's not really free. You got to click this button down here." And it always ends up you got to buy whatever they have. I'm not selling anything. I guess I am. If you're interested in a lot of the dynamics about this, you can get it in my book. And then if you're interested in my professional aspect part of it, I think that I can help you with is the interpersonal communication side of the. There are two other sides that I refer other company or other groups of people to, and that's the psychological and sociological side of leadership development. Those I'm not specialized in. I refer those out to other people. The communication side, yeah, oh hell yes, I can help you do that. And that, by the way, I think is one of the biggest issues. We haven't taught people how to communicate. Virtually no one has been taught how to communicate. Everybody I talk to, I ask, have you ever had 24, 25, 28, or 30 hours of actual communication about messaging, about nonverbal cues, about congruity, about any of that stuff? Active listening, relative active listening, how's that affect your brain from the standpoint of receptiveness and the brain, the parts of the brain that are processing that, and how it affects your nervous system, whether it's and how that then is part of the sympathetic or parasympathetic, and which one of those creates you to feel the way you do when you do it. Yeah, and that's how you know how people are behaving, and you can relate and change their behavior. None of that is being taught to our kids or to anybody else out there that I talk to. And it needs to be addressed. So yes, that's my side of it. That's my professional side. And yes, I have courses in that, and I can teach that. And I love talking about it. So sometimes I just take calls and we just talk for a couple hours about it. And people go on their way, and hopefully they're better for that. You can reach me at Building Renaissance Leaders. That's the YouTube channel you need to subscribe to get to this podcast. And you can find the blog over on my website, victorvogel.com. I just started it, so it's in the infancy and being developed, but it's there, so you can go find it and actually get in there and subscribe to it, because I will put this now into that blog, and we'll talk about, you can make comments and all that, or you can write articles about how we should do this better than what I'm proposing we're doing here. I'm open to any of that where we can do it better. Come on, Bring it on. I'm ready to hear you. All right. You have a nice day. We're going to go ahead and try to stop this thing. Now, most of these are going to be about this long, folks. So if you're one of those people that just can't stand something, if it doesn't capture you in 15 seconds, you're not going to like these, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. All right. Have a good one.